Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams. And today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment.
Welcome to another episode of the Power of Design podcast. Today, we're excited to have Thom Klingman, VP of New Business Development at CBI Workplace Solutions. CBI is a solutions-oriented organization focused on helping its clients leverage the power of the workplace. In this episode, Thom will explore his career journey and strategies for forging robust business relationships. He'll also discuss his personal decision to stop drinking alcohol and share his recent experience as a kidney donor.
Thom, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Jack. Thank you for having me.
Good, man. I'm very excited to have you here. I know I've known you for probably 10 plus years by now.
It's been longer than that.
Yeah, and I really enjoy getting to know you, doing business together. We have shared a lot of things along the years, a lot of things we have in common, and I'm really excited to talk more about your life, about business, and just keep this thing going.
Yeah. We've it was funny. We were together the other day, and I was telling my kids about just all the fun that we've had together, and just remembering some of the memories of NASCAR races and the fun outside of work. That's always an important thing in this industry is,
right.
Making friends and finding out what people like to do and having fun together. And then, talking about some of the projects we've worked on together. I mean,
sure.
we've done some big stuff together, and it's been a lot of fun, some real big memories in my career.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Thom, I'd like to start talking about, where your background, where are you from? Where did you grow up? Those are things that a lot of people like to learn and know about my guest. So why don't you give me a quick intro on about yourself?
So I was born here in Charlotte.
Oh, wow.
Born and raised.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. A funny story about my birth was that my parents at the time were living in Gastonia. Mm-hmm. And back in 1973, I don't think that Gastonia had the flair that it has now. And,
right.
And they were really worried about me actually being from Gastonia. So they, when my mom got pregnant or when she was going into labor,
yes,
they went to the grocery store first, divided up the grocery store list so that they could get through the grocery store. But they went to Charlotte, and I was born at Presbyterian Hospital. So technically I could be known as a Charlottean.
Wow.
Not knowing that would really have any impact other than just saying that I'm not from Gastonia.
Yeah, man, that's good, man. They were thinking about your future back then.
Yeah.
Okay, and so did you grow up here in Charlotte?
So I grew up here in Charlotte.
Okay.
From birth. When I was born, my dad at the time worked for Herman Miller. He was the Southeast regional rep.
Okay.
We moved to Marietta for a while. I think there was 3 years we lived down there.
Mm-hmm.
I barely remember. If you go back and the earliest memories that you've got of anything in your life, those were my memories of Marietta. I remember the house that we lived in and the driveway being a whole lot bigger than it really was. And there was a time where my parents tell this story. I don't remember it, but apparently we had a station wagon that lost its parking brake and started rolling down the hill, and my mom was in the car. It was
wow.
When I say down the hill, it was rolling down the driveway.
Yeah,
and
right.
At the time, I thought I was Superman, so I was going to stand behind the car and hold it from going out into the street. My dad sort of threw me out of the way.
Yeah.
And, it's from a very young age. I thought I could do a whole lot more than I ever really
exercising
could.
your powers.
So we moved when I was 5 years old to Charlotte. My dad got transferred from Atlanta up here to Charlotte, and from a very young age, I was introduced to this industry just with with having the exposure of what he was doing as a career, the influence that Herman Miller had even in the residential area of furniture. Our house had always, really cool classic pieces
Nice.
that I just thought everybody had in their
Sure,
house,
yeah.
Eames lounge chairs and all sorts of George Nelson pieces and things like that. And I actually had a workstation in my bedroom when I was growing up. And,
Wow.
from a very young age, not wanting to do my homework.
Sit to stand?
No, there was no sit to
70s.
stand. It was an old Action Office workstation that I used to take apart instead of doing my homework and put back together again. So from a very young age, I was exposed to what it was all about, to design and manufacture products for the home and the office.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So yeah, grew up, had a great experience here in Charlotte as a kid. Experienced both the private school side of things and the public school side of things. I ended up graduating from East Meck, Fighting Eagles. I thought all the cool people went to public school, so I convinced my parents to let me leave private school, and eventually.
What year was that?
Graduated in '91.
Okay.
So there's some people in our industry that know what East Meck was like back around those times. We all graduated together and had a great experience in high school, and everybody seemed to be going to college in state in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And although I was accepted to go to school at Chapel Hill, once I visited some other schools, especially Athens, Georgia, I saw what a college town really was all about. Not to offend anybody that loves Chapel Hill, but if you've been to Athens, you know that's a great place to go. So I ended up going to Georgia. Really enjoyed Georgia a whole lot. That's where I met my wife, and ended up graduating from Georgia and doing about 4 years in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I went to work for a company in Atlanta called CWC. Okay. That was 1996. And, really wanted to just cut my teeth around figuring out what the whole office furniture industry was all about. My dad at this time had left Herman Miller. In 1985, he started a company called Klingman Williams. He actually started it over on Cedar Street, and everybody thought he was crazy for going over there for trying to start a business in the middle 80s when there was nothing over there. Mm-hmm. But it's actually proved to be a great place to have a company. And after I realized I kind of liked the business and I liked what it was all about, I didn't want to come out of college going to work directly for my dad. Yeah. That's why I went to work at CWC. And you talk about going into a big town, not knowing anybody or any navigation or any way to get around. I mean, I had this big map in the back of my car that I always knew that anywhere I went in Atlanta was going to take me 45 minutes to get to. But the wheels started turning and things started happening, and I had some success down at CWC, and I'm very thankful to those guys down there.
What kind of tasks did you have to do?
I was in sales. Just completely. I mean, from the day that I showed up, I love to tell the story about Bob Theodore. Bob passed earlier this year, and January 2nd, 1996 was when I started at CWC, and Bob was the first person that I met. So, you walk into the doors of your new career, you're right out of college, and you meet this big gregarious guy that's larger than life in our world and in the furniture world. And Bob ended up working with us at CBI, and it's funny how from 1996 all the way up to earlier this year, we're working together, and it's a small industry. It really is, which is really interesting. But really love sales. I mean, I can tell a lot of stories about being thrown into an open work environment down there with 28 other salespeople, and we're all competing for the same thing. We're all trying to throw each other off in terms of leads and opportunities that are out there. And I can remember back in those days, there were no computers or cell phones. And so whenever I would try to make calls or contact clients, I had this big 6x6 workstation that was laminate walls, and all the other competing salespeople would know that I was making cold calls at that point in time. Not actually cold, but making calls, trying to connect with clients. So they'd all take handfuls of change and throw them over my workstation walls, and they'd rattle around inside the workstations and bounce off the laminate walls. And so I ended up having to find a little place in the warehouse to go make all my calls. And,
nice.
It was tough. I mean, at the time, it was terrifying.
Easy. Yeah, I know.
But I look back with fond memories on that. I mean, it's something that my boys are 22 and 25 now, and I say, guys, it's scary getting out in the real world, but man, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Those were fun times. And to see the wheels start to turn and start to have some success was really fun.
Yeah, especially sales, that it's, for any type of business, sales is the most important activity.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have sales, there's nothing to deliver.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I tell my kids now that they're still little. I'll talk to them about sales all the time and say, sales is important.
Yeah.
You're helping people. You're adding value to them. It helps you. Now that I own my own business, that I have to sell, I really enjoy selling. I feel that I need to step up my game. I need to feel confident because people are interacting with you. So if you feel good about yourself, they want to be with you.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of things that sometimes we don't sense, but that sense of confidence and if you're calm, you know what you're doing. It's a lot of the sales are influenced by how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think if you're going to be successful in sales, and I'm sure that you understand this as an entrepreneur. I've never started a company, so I don't know how that feels. But I do know that, when you're in a sink or swim sort of environment, and there's some sleepless nights, and I've got to figure this out sort of mentality.
Yeah.
You're either going to figure it out or you're not. And, and obviously you've managed to figure it out here at OSA.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always, my formula is not complex. When I started to panic, I always think massive action. Just do something. Okay. Yeah. If you're getting nervous, just make more calls. Go to more meetings.
That's right.
Try to do more. Like get busy. Just get the ball rolling. The results are gonna happen, but don't stay overthinking because that's the worst part. Yeah. To be paralyzed.
Yeah. Well, I like to simplify things in my life, and I look at really anything in life that has an output. Mm-hmm. It's a simple equation of inputs versus outputs.
Right.
And you've got to stack up the inputs on the left side of the equation in order to receive the outputs. Yeah. And there's got to be a whole lot more inputs to get those outputs. But if you keep it simple and you understand that you're not going to get anything as a result of doing nothing, mm-hmm. right? That you've got to do a lot of work to get a result, and you understand it from that point, I think it really accentuates what you were just describing.
Yeah, and it's cause and effect. Yeah. It works. Yeah. You either learn what not to do or you learn what to do, but you're making progress.
Yeah, as long as you're learning along the way. I think that at 51 years old, that's really where I am in life is a point where I've learned a lot, and not happy about all the things that I've done in life, but happy with where I am.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me more about now you're getting into sales. You're making some deals happen, some success.
Started to have some success at CWC in Atlanta, and realized that I really loved the girl that I was dating and wanted to get married. And so my dad sort of put it to me that if I was ever going to come to work in Charlotte at Klingman Williams, if I was going to get engaged, I need to choose whether I was going to put roots down in Atlanta or in Charlotte. So in 1998, Lori and I got married and moved back to Charlotte. And I always like to say that was a big transition year. I was 25 years old, mm-hmm. And in that year, we moved to Charlotte. So I got married, moved to Charlotte. She was pregnant 6 weeks after we got married.
Wow, efficient.
We bought a new house that I couldn't afford, and we had an infant before our first anniversary.
Wow!
So that year was a big year.
Yeah,
and I love to tell that year because as somebody that really isn't. I don't think of myself as having really any extraordinary strengths or capabilities. If I can get through something like that at 25 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm speaking to the 25 or somethings around that age at this point. You can get through anything.
Oh, yeah.
You can do anything you set your mind to, man. That's what Eminem said, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. I mean, we started a family here in Charlotte in 98, was working for my dad. Things, had to start all over again in terms of the sales and the business development and learning a new culture and a new company and everything. And we were successful with Klingman Williams, and we had a lot lot of great partners and a lot of great friends that allowed the company to really grow.
Yeah.
We ended up in 2008 deciding that we wanted to merge with another company. And it was at that time that the economy was really bad and everything was sort of going downhill. And my dad, he decided that he wanted to retire. That it was probably just a good time to get out while some of the prior numbers that really valued the company were at their peak, and he could sort of retire and live a good life. And so he ended up getting out of the business. And I worked with that company that we merged with for some time. Doing quite well at business development. I think that's when you and I met.
Yeah, that's right.
We were working on some projects. I think you were over at Gensler, and we started our friendship then. And I really realized at that point in time that my career was something around business development and sales that I really had a passion for it, and no matter what I was doing, during my day, I always felt pulled towards this idea of going to find opportunity.
Yeah.
Telling the story, learning about, what clients need, what really, what's a company all about, what makes their brand strong, what supports their culture, how do those interact, and, how is that reflected in the workplace? That's such a big component of what we do. I mean, I think if you're dealing with anything, it's all about people and relationships and solving problems.
Sure.
So it was interesting. Right around 2012, 2013, David Longo starts calling me and asking me to go to have coffee and start talking. And you got to remember, back in the days that we had Klingman Williams, David Longo and CBI were my dad's number one competition. So I've always known CBI as, where we were the Herman Miller dealer in town, CBI was the Knoll dealer in town. And, that was my competition. And so this guy in 2012 is calling me and, just wanting to have we've always had a friendship, but it's getting to where, maybe showing a little bit of interest and I'm liking, the friendship that we're developing. He's created a company that's very, very God-centered. It's very community-centered, and it's very family-based. And that was just a real good, strong culture that we had at Klingman Williams, and I felt like CBI just really was a place that I was more and more interested in. Yeah, it was interesting because at that same time that we had sort of decided to take Klingman Williams to a different place. Balfour Beatty and R.T. Dooley were talking at the same time, and that was sort of significant because David Dooley had sort of gone through the same transition with his family business, and he was also showing some interest in wanting to talk to me alongside of David Longo. And so finally in 2014, it all sort of kind of came to a head, and I realized that David Dooley was coming on board with CBI, and behind the scenes, I had been shared some of the intentions of building a very strong growth pattern, or not growth pattern, but a growth trajectory for what David Longo wanted to do with the company and taking it to another level. And he wanted me to be a part of it, and it was something that I just really felt drawn to, and so literally, it was July of 2014, and we're sitting here July 2024. Yeah. 10 years later. 10 years?
Wow. Yeah. I can't believe it's that.
Which is really cool.
I know.
And it's been a lot of fun. But I had to learn Knoll. Sure. And I had to learn the product of what solutions were that we were selling. But the idea of connecting with people on a relationship basis, that wasn't any different. I mean, that was something that CBI and the leadership really embraced, and that's what, again, I was drawn to, was this idea that the idea of solution selling was a big part of how we were approaching clients, and understanding that the workplace really mattered, and that good design is good business. Oh yeah. And that when you can leverage the workplace to affect brand and culture, you've got magic. With a client.
Yeah, and I've been doing business, with you and with CBI, for more than 10 years, and I can I can really tell, how strong the team is. The culture. Every person you interact with, you get this. I don't know how to define it, but there is this warmth about the team, the people. Putting relationships first. Not just saying it, but doing it.
Yeah.
And that's impactful.
Yeah.
And by default, that means good business.
Yeah.
Because we all want to do business with people we enjoy working with.
Yeah. And Charlotte's a great community for that.
Yes.
I've got that brief experience from Atlanta, and I never got that sense when I was down there. Atlanta was just so big and hectic and busy and really just something you couldn't get your arms around. And maybe, maybe I've got an advantage being from Charlotte. It's funny how you grow up and you start in this business and your friends' dads are the ones that are making the decisions,
Yes.
in companies and now that I've gotten to the age that I am, it's some of my childhood friends that are making those decisions.
Right.
And the girls and guys that I went to school with are now in those leadership positions. And yeah, maybe it is an advantage, but I just feel so much more of a community warmth and a welcoming sense that Charlotte has.
Yeah, and you can understand how, sometimes the deals, they become bigger and larger. So, it's even more difficult to feel comfortable with the people you're doing business with.
Yeah.
Because, there's more risk. You want to make sure the other side is professional. They're going to deliver because that's not the norm.
Right.
In business, we hear horror stories every single day.
Yeah.
At any scale of deal.
Yeah.
So that trust and that the experience, the background of the person, that means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the things that I have experienced and I really appreciate from you and CBI is when you start referring people to each other. Mm-hmm. So now the trust you have built with other people, like when you refer business to me, that trust is transferred. Yeah. And now I feel like, oh man, I need to live up to that now.
Right.
Because I feel more concerned about letting you down than the business. I'm like, no, he is my friend, and he put my name there. So right. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure his client is happy.
That's right.
I don't really care what the financial outcome is. Of course, I want to make money, but I'm more concerned about that because the deal may happen one time, but the relationship stays.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the biggest pieces I give to advice, or that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to the younger people in our company and to other people that I can say, if anything, you never, ever burn a bridge. Mm-hmm. I don't care how mad somebody makes you. I can remember, and I'm not gonna get into the details of it, but you were on a phone call with me one time where somebody lost their cool and just really made a real ass of themselves.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that. And it was not you, Jack.
Thank you.
But it's hard to go back over a bridge that you've burnt. And Charlotte is still a small community where reputation matters and doing the right thing matters.
Yeah.
And people have long memories.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do what you say and you stand by what you say you're going to do, people remember that as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your clients today. What kind of clients do you guys have? How do you serve them? How do you guys add value to them?
Yeah. I can talk about the clients today versus the clients when I very first came to Charlotte, and things have changed a lot. Charlotte was so heavily influenced by just a few institutions in Charlotte, the banking, the energy, the hospitals, and Charlotte is so much more diversified. I mean, mm-hmm. Technology is such a big part of Charlotte. Things have changed, and there's a lot of people that come to Charlotte not because they're influenced from the financial side of things, the financial aspect of the Charlotte market, which was what was the big driver, back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think people are coming to Charlotte for quality of life, and companies are looking at Charlotte because of the talent pool that's here. So we've got such a different type of client that that we might work with today that we worked with 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Whether it be technology, whether it be a law firm, and the way that the legal world has changed, and the way that not everybody's in suits and ties every day, and the accounting firms that support everything. The thing that I've really enjoyed being a part of are the technology companies that have come to town, and really seeing the influence of how the workspace has changed from just it's not an 8 to 5 business anymore of being at your desk and as long as you're at your desk you're working, right?
Yes.
Sort of mentality. You've got the ability to have so many other collaborative spaces, places where you might not necessarily have to be even in the building. You might have some green space outside where you can work. And I think that technology companies have really been at the forefront, and we're seeing that emerge and change in a lot of other companies that were a lot more buttoned up. I've mentioned law firms before, but I'm fascinated with the way that they work and how they really want to. Lawyers don't have to be at their desk. I mean, they can work from home pretty easily, and I've got a lot of neighbors that do that. And so the challenges that a lot of administrators in law firms have is, how do we attract these people back to the office? How do we make this a better place for them to want to be than their living room or their dining room or their home office?
Yeah.
And that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was very surprised when I started working on workplace projects. Before that, I used to work in retail, mixed use, more type of base building work. Mm-hmm. When I started working on workplace projects and started interacting more with, furniture companies like you guys, and seeing how important and integral part is that of the whole design, I started realizing how influential you guys are in the whole spectrum of the design team. If typically you have a design team and a contractor building a team, now the furniture provider is a big piece of the puzzle. Yeah. There's electrical engineering that is impacted by it. There's impacted life safety because there is a layout. How it's impacting lighting, how you laid out the lighting. So there's so many things that go around that. And because of that, sometimes I realize that sometimes end users, they have their own business, whether it's technology, law firm, accounting firm, they need something in their office. They think furniture first. And sometimes they call you guys first. And they said, hey, I need this project. I need to expand. Yeah. Because it's the closest thing to them, because that's what they touch. Yeah. This is their chair, is their surface. And then at some point, you guys help them understand you need an architect. Right. You need a GC. You need a permit. Right. We can help you with these things. But now you guys are at the forefront many times of the conversation, because it's the closest thing end users have to their workplace. Right.
Well, the solution sort of is at the end of the conversation for us. Our real value, I think, that we can add is when we can talk to somebody that's curious about their workplace. When you talk to leadership of companies and they don't exactly know what they need. Maybe somebody realizes from a leadership perspective that they want to get multiple offices under one roof, and they don't even know where to start. Yeah. And so the conversation really doesn't have to do a lot with furniture. It really has to do with, what are your corporate goals? What are your cultural goals? What's working? What's not working? And, what do you want to get right in this space? And, what are some stakeholders, who are some stakeholders in the business that might be able to talk to us about, things that might keep them or hold them back from being productive in their space. So let's just have a conversation, a real easy conversation about things that you like, things that you don't, and things that really are important to you and the company, and things that can affect the culture. When you have that conversation and you really listen to what the client has to say, all the solutions start to come into play, and they sort of fall into place. Right. But it's that listening thing that I think a lot of people miss.
Yeah, and especially when you find the right client, sometimes people are buying just furniture, and that's all they care about, and that's all they want to buy. Right. And they might be ignoring that real conversation. And I think that's when projects are fun, is where everybody's in sync.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I know we're doing architecture, we're doing furniture, but this is all about culture. This is all about your people.
Yeah.
This is all, it's all about health and wellness. This is about how you experience the space and how do we utilize these things we design, in 3D that support that end goal, which is what really matters, is the people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
one of the other things that I like when I started working in workplace projects was just thinking about any traditional adult that joins the workforce. It's going to work in an office for 40 years of their lives?
Yeah.
40 hours a week for 40 years. So you probably spend more time alive in an office than at home.
Yeah.
Because when you're at home, you're sleeping 8 hours.
Yeah.
So the workplace is very important.
And how can it enhance your life? I mean, that's the thing that I'm most curious about is so we do have to spend some time in the office, right? A significant amount of our time.
Yeah.
How can you as a person not only emotionally want to be there, but physically thrive in a space like that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of factors that go into that, but there's nothing worse than thinking that you have to go to work, or that you have to be at your desk, or you have to do this, or have to. It's when you can change the mindset from where I get to work here, and I get to go to work, and I get to work with these people, and my company takes care of me, and I want to do good for them. It's a whole. I mean, it's this perspective shift that has to take place. And I know it doesn't happen for everybody in every single workplace, but generally, if you can listen to the client and listen to leadership, and you can leverage the workspace to really appeal to some of the questions that you ask. Yeah. That's where the magic happens, and you can see it doesn't take long to go around Charlotte and see the effective workplaces and the places where people do want to work, and they've got a great culture. The brand is enhanced as a result. They've got great clients because the people are interested in what they're doing, and they're providing a great product and a great service. It's a big puzzle, and
Sure.
every project is a different puzzle.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
I'd like to go back to sales a little bit and learn more about you personally, because you had this long history interacting with the world, exchanging ideas, exchanging deals, and I know for sure you have evolved, learned things, changed things, tweak things here and there, lessons learned. How do you feel today about kind of your evolution and what are kind of the big lessons you have learned along these years?
There have been a lot of changes. Technology has changed everything. The way that we present, the way that we interact with clients, the ability for us to be more accurate in the way that we, when it comes down to counting and pricing things. I mean, all that is changed. But the relationship side of thing has not changed.
Right.
I mean, people are still people.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. And I hate to keep harping on this, but it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
And, everybody's got 24 hours in the day, and you've got to figure out, how they're spending those 24 hours in a day, what's important to them, and how are you going to connect with them on a heart-to-heart basis. And so from that perspective, it really hasn't changed. And you've got to slow down and do a lot of listening with people. I know I keep using that word, but I think people miss that so much. I think people get so busy and they miss the connection that you can make with somebody that really can change the outcome of an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not that you're selling someone, you're developing a relationship with somebody.
Yes, and I think one of the things that you're really good at, and in general, part of your team is, I think, authenticity. I think it's one of the things that I admire the most, about you. Just being real.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we're going through real life together.
Yeah.
There is no reason to pretend something. There is no reason to hide anything. We are who we are, and we're all humans, and we're doing this together. But just know that we're always here.
Yeah.
Right. And feeling comfortable about making a call when you need help. When you're down, letting somebody else know, hey man, I'm down. All these things that sometimes in the business world, it feels that are so surface level, that I see a lot of younger people kind of getting into these business development roles, trying to, hey man, I'm the best and I'm strong and I can do everything, but that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all humans.
Well,
we're all going through ups and downs every single day.
I mean, it really, really goes back to just the golden rule. I mean, treat others the way you want to be treated. And, that's worked since the beginning of time,
yes.
Right? And when you're not authentic or you're not genuine, people can see it. And I know I've been inauthentic and I've been disingenuous and I've learned from that, and you've got to learn from your mistakes. You're not perfect. Mm-hmm. You're not expected to be perfect, but if you can learn from your mistakes and you really understand that people have feelings and if you treat people the way you want to be treated, everything seems to work out for the best.
Yeah. I always, tell to myself and tell my team, we're providing a service, professional services. Mm-hmm. We're designing these things for people, but what we're really selling is how people feel about themselves when they're interacting with us. Mm-hmm. Because if they feel good about themselves and we're looking out for their best interest, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
We all crave feeling better.
Yeah.
Right? Feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
They're going to come back because we all want that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you feel a certain way, I mean, it really is so basic. And I talk about slowing down, and I have to slow myself down because I got this inner motor that goes pretty fast. But if I slow down and if I maybe enjoyed a lunch with somebody, write them a thank you note. Just tell them how you feel.
Yes.
It's just as easy as that. There's no complicated sort of big formula that you got to follow. It's what you just said. I mean, how are you gonna touch them? How are you gonna leave them feeling better after being with you than if they weren't?
Yeah. One of the other things I always like about you is that you're always kind of listening to podcasts. About these ideas, and you're investigating about products and health and wellness and new stuff, or you're running, or you're doing I remember that I always remember this about you when you told me that you text in the morning your kids about like Bible verses and things like that, so you're very engaged with your family, with your faith and your body. So tell me a little bit about how you approach life and how do you keep evolving and tweaking those things in your life?
Man, that's a great question because I've had I've had the past 2 years have been a big pivot in my life, a big change in the way that not only the way I live my life, but really the way I look at life. I decided about 2 years ago, or I don't know that I decided. I think it was decided for me that I had a problem with alcohol, and it was something that had to be dealt with. And I'm very open and transparent about this, sure. And I don't have any hesitation to talk about that. It's something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and I want to put myself out there because I want others to see that. that life is good without alcohol. I think that from a young age in high school, and you can make excuses. Oh yeah, I had beers in high school, and college was a lot of fun, and all this other kind of stuff. But when it gets to a point where, you're drinking a lot during the week, and it's starting to affect relationships, and you're starting to hear a lot of people say, "Hey, you might want to back off," or what was going on when we were together last week, and that you might have been drinking too much, or whatever it is.
Sure.
It led me the spring of 22 to realize that I needed to stop.
Yeah.
And I had some medical issues that was really, really, I'm hard-headed. God basically said, "Tom, you're going to stop drinking."
Wow.
And I found that I'd had a seizure, and I found myself in the hospital. And you can die from seizures. And when you realize that you're facing really bad medical issues, that's probably a good thing to listen to.
Yeah.
And I've got a point to why I'm bringing all this kind of stuff up, because I went to treatment and got through that and realized that I was going to really take this seriously. In treatment, I hit my knees and I prayed to God and really got deep in my faith around the idea of I just needed the obsession to leave me. I did not want to think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And it was something that I had to work through. It's hard as hell.
Sure.
I mean, it really is.
Oh yeah.
But day by day, I mean, you can't. It's like if you want to lose weight, you're not going to lose weight in one day.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, getting sober takes a long time. And I mean, you got to stop, right? But it doesn't mean that the desire just goes away.
Sure.
So I got serious about it. I think a lot of people around me were very happy that I was taking it seriously. And I'd been in a Bible study for about 6 years with some guys that I really love a lot, some really true men of faith, one of which was going through some health issues of his own. So I get back from rehab in July of 2022. I'm sitting in Bible study in October, and one of the men in my Bible study says he's dealing with some issues, and he's got renal failure. And renal failure is that he's got kidney disease, and if he doesn't get a kidney, he's going to die.
Wow.
And so I go home that night and I talked to Lori and I said, "Man, that'd be cool if somebody from our Bible study was a donor."
Yeah.
She said, "Well, you need to get tested." And I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, nobody wants anything on this body. Yeah. I've used it up. Organs are shot. There's no way that I can, even if I was a match, that they'd want anything on my body. And lo and behold, I was a match.
Wow.
They did some very invasive procedures to make sure that everything was the way that it needed to be. They went so far as to do what they call a fiber scan on my liver, which is where they go in and actually look at your liver. And they actually found out that there was no sign of me ever drinking.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that I was a perfect match. So, 4 months out of rehab, and I'm sitting there with all these positive results around the idea that I can give a kidney.
Yes.
And so I did a lot of praying, and realized this was something that I needed to do. And so when I say that the last 2 years have really been a pivot in my life, I've realized that God wasn't wanting me to get sober just for me to stop drinking.
Right.
He needed this kidney.
Yeah.
And it was all about hope for somebody else. When I needed hope to be sober or to get sober, God provided for me. And who was I to hold back hope from somebody else?
Yeah.
I get pretty emotional when I talk about this because it's clear as day that that all of this happened in a sequence by God's hand in my life to give somebody else hope. And so earlier this year in January, my good friend Chip Cash and I went into the hospital together on I can't remember, I think it was like a Wednesday morning. And the way that they do the surgery, the kidney donation, is that we are in side-by-side operating rooms, and they literally open me up and take it out, and they do whatever they're going to do with the organ itself, and then put it inside Chip. That afternoon, we saw one another, and we actually got a chance to spend some time together post-surgery. And we were they didn't put us next to each other in our recovery rooms because they wanted us at opposite ends of the hall, so we had to walk to one another.
Yes.
They forced us to do a lot of walking.
That makes sense.
But it's really changed everything in my life. It's changed my faith. It's changed my relationships, my personal relationships with my wife, with my sons.
What's different?
For me, I think the trust is a big thing that I've worked hard to earn, and I don't think that that's ever something that you take very lightly. You know, when I was in Florida at rehab, one of the things that I heard from a guy that had been sober for almost 20 years was that he talked about the number one thing that he got back was his dignity, and I hadn't thought about that word very much until that point, and I realized that I had lost a lot of dignity after drinking. And now that I am sober, I do have a lot of dignity back, and it's just changed my perspective on things. And it's, you go back to that golden rule thing and you feel a lot more when you're sober. You're aware of so much more. And I have this huge desire to really want to touch people in a good way.
Yeah.
One of the Bible verses that I really held on to when I was going through all of this and trying to understand if I wanted to be a donor, do you really want to give up one of your two kidneys, to somebody else? And John 15:13 is the Bible verse. And, greater is no love than a man that would give his life for a friend.
Yeah.
And, that really was something that struck me. And can I do something that's going to give somebody else life, or can I be a conduit for that? Let me just say, I'm not giving anybody life.
Sure.
This kidney was not mine. It was God's. He just needed it for somebody else.
That's incredible, man. That's, I've never met a person who had done that before. You're the first one. And there's so much packing there, from every angle. Just from a basic human level is taking a part of somebody's body and put it inside somebody other human so it works better.
Yeah.
And doctors that know how to do it and do it properly, that's just incredible. And just, the willingness to do it, I think that for sure. Tell me about that, like the decision. I mean, how did that happen? When did you say, I'm doing this?
The decision wasn't hard. I had been through so much emotionally with the whole sobriety and I had so many ups and downs, and when I chose that I was really going to embrace, being sober, God changed my heart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a burning bush moment. It wasn't some sort of big, epiphany or anything. It was something that came over time, but it made me realize that I'm not on this earth for myself.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot in life, and a lot's been given to me. And I realized that being sober is a lot about giving back.
Yeah.
And, in that process of earning trust and getting trust back, you've got to work hard at that. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've got a lot of love in my family, and I've got an awesome wife that's put up with a lot of crap. And I don't ever want to break that trust. I got two young men that are sons that they're 22 and 25, and I want them to see their dad as somebody that they can trust.
That's an incredible example right there. I mean, just sharing, the impact to your family, to your community, having that flag, that you proudly said, I did this.
Yeah.
Having your story around it, that's so powerful. And I think that, to me, it goes back full circle to, like I was thinking about the beginning, it's all how you feel about yourself when you're interacting with others.
Right.
So imagine now with your renewed relationship with yourself, because that's a new relationship.
Yeah.
You're even a better salesperson right now.
Well, I said this earlier. I feel a whole lot more. I'm aware. The clarity. You asked how I decided to do this. There wasn't a whole big decision. My decision was, am I a match or not? And if I am, we're going to do this. I hope that this isn't the only time in life that I'm presented an opportunity to help somebody else on that sort of level.
Yeah.
I see Chip walk into the room, and we'll have Bible study in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah.
And every time he walks in the room, I'm like, man, one of my boys is
I
inside
know,
that
that's
guy.
incredible.
And he's healthy, and all of his markers are where they need to be. And you can't tell me that I was just in the right place at the right time.
Right.
I mean, people wait over 10 years for a kidney to be donated. And this guy found out in a matter of weeks that I was a match.
Wow.
And he happened to be in the same Bible study, and he happened to live, in the same town, and he was willing to do this. And, and our families have gotten close as a result. And, that the hand of God was in this in such a way that, that the benefit that I get out of it is that I'm sober, man.
Sure.
And that I get to live a life now of really knowing that I need to be aware of God in my life to the fullest extent that I can. And
one of the things that are very common in our society, which I love and appreciate our society. That's why I'm here, and I love our city and our network. But I think two of the biggest problems we have are, number one is workaholism, addicted to work, and alcoholism. Because I think those are the two addictions that are approved by our society. So when you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? Oh, man, so busy, working 80 hours a week. And it's like a badge of honor, but you don't realize the price you're paying for that.
Yeah.
You're neglecting your family. You're neglecting yourself. You're dedicating your life to doing something instead of being something for someone or for yourself. And then drinking is so, prevalent that it's so easy to go overboard. Mm-hmm. And I think at this point you probably have a very clear lens today to see other people when you realize, oh my God, there's all these people. I see what's going on, or I see where they're going because it's socially acceptable, so we don't pay attention to it, but we don't know what happens after you leave the networking party. You don't know what happens later.
Right.
But it's just so easy. Our society just created this platform for that to be easy to happen.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't, prior to me getting sober, I did not understand that there could be a life out there without alcohol. Hey, let's go to the lake, grab some beers. Hey, it's Christmas time, open a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Hey, it's whatever. Get some alcohol, and it's all, like you said, just so socially acceptable. And I know that there's probably some people listening to this podcast that can't imagine their life without alcohol. And I'm here to tell you that there's a better life on the other side of it without it.
Yeah, and I will think that if you're asking yourself that question, that might be the sign.
Yeah. If I can do it, I'm just telling you, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And anything worthwhile is not easy to get to, right? Something's of any value, you've got to work at it. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's not a light switch, and it's not one day you have a problem and the next you don't. You continually, I'll always be an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I will always have a problem with alcohol. And I'm only one sip away from destroying everything that I've worked hard for.
Yeah.
All the things that all the benefits that I've just outlined can be gone, with one sip. And so I'm very aware of that. I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah.
There's sort of a priority, a list of priorities that we talk about in recovery, where you put God first, your sobriety second, and your family is third. And I know that might sound a little weird that you would prioritize sobriety over your family, but I know my family doesn't want me around unless I'm sober. And so I know that they can understand why I would prioritize sobriety over them.
Yeah.
But I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I don't want to give up what I got.
Yeah.
It's such a blessing.
Yeah. What are you excited about, and what are you excited about your future in, personal life and business life?
Man, I got to tell you, I'm so excited about watching my two boys grow up. I mean, I am just so proud. And they put up with a lot, and they've turned out to be just two young men of faith, determination. I know every parent's proud of their kids, and I get emotional about this, but they both they both know the direction that they want to go in. They know who they want to be, right now, I can't be any more proud of what they're turning out to be, and what my wife has really done as a mother. We do have a very traditional family, and the bond that the four of us have is so tight, and we talk amazing. Every single day. We probably talk 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So if I can say that I'm really excited, I would say my family and my faith. Somebody challenged me about a year ago to read the Bible cover to cover, and I did. I've read the New Testament a lot. I've never really gotten into the Old Testament, and my faith is just something that is opened my eyes to so much of why things are the way that they are in this world, good and bad, and it's really boiled things down to why we're on this earth. And my purpose on this earth, and I'll speak for myself, is to love God and love others, and it's that simple.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be for me in that order. And I've found that over the last 2 years of being sober, things work out. You put God first and others second. Put yourself way down at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Things turn out okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the chances for the story to be different are huge. Like things could have gone the wrong way very easily.
Yeah.
So that's very, it's incredible. It's a good story. There is so much about it. I think this is just the beginning, just from my side, just listening to it, it's like, wow, there's so many things that are going to happen here that this is just you just getting started.
Yeah.
To do amazing stuff and to continue living, your best life.
Well, I've prayed a lot about being on the show, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it, Jack. I see you as a really good friend and a leader in this industry, and I made a deal with God that as long as He keeps me sober, I'll be very, very vocal about what I've been through, and the ditch that I've been in, and the mountaintop that I've been on. As a result of really listening and being willing to be led in a positive direction.
Sure, yeah, and I know for sure you're having a bigger impact than the one you think you're having.
Yeah.
Sometimes even me with my own podcast that are all these one-to-one conversations, because I never even listened to my own podcast after I publish it because I already had the conversation. Many times I go to, events or I meet people. They're like, oh my God, I heard this story and it was amazing, or I did this or this happened. Or sometimes people never tell me, but they're getting a lot out of hearing this story. And I think by you sharing your story, that's huge. I think that, just being here, people listening, who knows who's listening right now that needed to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it could be multiple people.
Yeah. And that's my prayer. And, I hope that if there are people that are struggling with whatever, just slow down, assess your priorities, are they in the right place?
Yeah.
Because mine were not.
Yeah.
My wife, my kids, all the people that are really close to me can tell you that my priorities were not in the right place.
Yeah.
And, I think that as long as I keep my priorities, heading in the right direction, that it's not to say that I won't have any problems. I'm going to have plenty of problems for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
We all do. But I'll be able to better be equipped to get through them.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Thom. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jack.
You have been a great blessing in my life. I'm always enjoy getting to know you, learning from you, sharing business and life with you. And I'm excited about the future. And I look forward to continue, being your friend and making things happen.
That means the world to me, Jack. I appreciate your friendship as well.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.